Chat. I see some of you already chatting, so I'm going to go ahead and welcome you to this live chat. But let me sign on to Instagram and make sure that I hit the go live button. It was a couple weeks ago that I thought I signed on to Instagram and I didn't because sometimes I'm technologically just confused. So you'll learn that about me as we go along. Let me just recognize some of you. I'm going to start with Kyra Knows 144. Hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Indigo Glow and Deb, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. The Retro Woman 80, hello. Glad to have you again tonight. Welcome. And Live Life, hello. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. Welcome. Jessica J and Courtney Fraser, hello. Glad to see you as well. And I'm sure more of you will sign on as we go along. Alicia Riggs and MS Kim 671, hello and welcome. Just saw you sign on. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. She Praise, hello. I love that screen name. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Chrome Butterfly and Nancy Conway, hello and welcome. Welcome. I also see Ari Andrews. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. I got a message the other day, and someone, which I totally ignore comments like this because they don't know how my channel operates. But I received a comment last week, and the comment was, "Do you have to give a shout out to everybody that's in the live chat?" And I just decided not to answer it because, to me, it was spammy. But I love introducing you guys and welcoming you because, and I'm just going to throw this out here for anybody else who may have that same kind of thought in the back of their mind. I love welcoming you guys because you are such a major and active part of this live community. So for me to recognize you is just like, welcome home, guys. Like, you guys are wonderful. So figured I would put that out there as I welcome you guys to the live chat. Now, tonight's live chat, we are going to talk about the psychology of being disliked. The psychology of being disliked. We're going to make this more specialized, though, and we're not going to just necessarily talk about the psychology of being disliked in all relationships, which we can, right? If you have a friendship or a coworker situation or a boss situation where you feel disliked, you can definitely use this information in tonight's live chat. But I do want to zone in, though, on family dislike because that's where the trauma begins, right? The trauma begins within the family. And when you start to feel disliked by your family, everything in your life kind of goes down at first, right? Because then you start to ask yourself, what is it about me that they don't like? And have I done something, said something? What have I done? Or what is wrong with me? Or who raised me, right? What is going on with me that my family doesn't like me? And where did this start? So those kind of questions I'm hoping to kind of help you process in tonight's live chat. And I also want to give you some ways that being disliked within your family can actually harm you, but how you can also emerge in a stronger way. So we will do both of those things in tonight's live chat. I'm also going to throw some neurology in here because part of my training in higher education when I was in graduate school, I don't know, 10 years ago, I learned a lot about neurology. So neurology is at the core of everything I talk about because that's my area of expertise. So we're going to talk about the brain a little bit. You're going to learn some new definitions of the brain, so you can understand that, oh my, it's not just that I'm disliked and I'm feeling insecure and I'm feeling lonely. I'm not just having all these emotions because of my family disliking me, but this is having a neurological impact on my brain. This is literally something that is happening to me on the inside because of this dislike. So we're going to get into that tonight. And hopefully you guys will find this live chat helpful. We're going to try to wrap up. I'm going to try my best to wrap up at 7. Hold me to that, guys, please. Because, when I get into your comments, it's like I get lost in that. So hold me to that 7 o'clock time. I just want to acknowledge some of you that have signed on. Hello, V. I rarely get a chance to welcome you, so welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I also see Pappy444. I'm going to put you on the screen. Hello and welcome. Deb says, I love that you welcome us too. You make us feel included, and we need that. Absolutely. That is a heartfelt comment. Thank you for that, Deb. I feel like that too. I feel like that too. You're welcome. You're welcome. I know. If you didn't have that screen name, I would steal that. I would definitely steal that screen name, She Prays. Justice, hello and welcome to the track. Glad to have you in tonight. Says never received the notification, so upset at YouTube. Yes, I don't know what's going on because a lot of you guys are like emailing me behind the scenes saying I'm not getting a notification. So maybe I will contact YouTube later tonight. They have like a 24/7 communication with creators. Maybe I'll ask them what's going on. I'm sorry about that, but thank you for pointing that out. Thank you. Yeah, fairy girl. I often forget to welcome you, so forgive me. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Love the dabs. You know I do. You know I do. Cascadia Condor, hello and welcome. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Welcome to the chat. Barb Pace Lamb. Yeah, so glad you got notified. Wonderful. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Yeah. Thank you, Kyra Knows. I love that. She just added some more dabs to the picture. Thank you for that. All right, guys. So let's jump into this. Okay. This is heavy, so I'm going to try to break this up in a way that makes sense and it feels comfortable to you guys and me too. I don't like information that's over my head. I feel like we're all intelligent human beings. We don't need that kind of knowledge, right? So I'm going to try to make this as simplified as I can. So let's start with a couple concepts. Okay, I think as we go through this topic of feeling disliked by your family and being disliked by your family, I think the most important concept here is a concept or word known as self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Here's what that means. A self-fulfilling prophecy says that it's another individual. So let's say, I'm going to put it in terms of an example for you to kind of grasp this. Let's say, for example, your dad, okay? He's a narcissist. He's a covert narcissist. He seems to be a loving person, to other people, to neighbors, to strangers, maybe to his students if he was a teacher. But when he comes home, he's a raging, mean, cruel person, right? So let's say your dad looks at you and says, so what grade did you get on the exam? And you may say, I got a C. I was able to bring my grade up to a C. It took me a while, but I got it up to a C and I'm going to try to get it up to an A. Your dad may look at you, glare at you, and say, that's unacceptable, and give you some mean words, say something that's hurtful to you, and walk out of your room. Okay. You're left with a sense of failure, right? Feeling like he just was condescending to you, feeling like he doesn't believe in you, feeling like he dislikes you and doesn't love you. He just wants you to make him look good. Because of those internalized feelings that he has left with you, you may find yourself now seeing yourself through your own lens, through your own eyes, as now a failure because of those messages that your dad sent to you in that little exchange. And so then you begin to kind of live up to that very, very negative expectation of you. And that's called the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's almost like you begin to internalize what that narcissistic father of yours felt about you, thought about you, believed about you in that moment, and you've internalized it, you've ingested it. And so now, right now, you are going to perform at a lower level because that's the level that you feel that you can perform at, right? And so a self-fulfilling prophecy can be damaging, right? Because what it does is it removes the truth and a new lens kind of covers your eyes, right? And it may be a lens of failure. It may be a lens of not being good enough. It may be a lens of being unloved, being disliked. And then you carry all of that pain and all of those feelings of rejection and those very, very low expectations of you. You take all of those into your daily life and now you feel unloved and disliked. Okay. And you can feel disliked in such a way that the self-fulfilling prophecy becomes a part of your life. You only live up to, in quotation marks, live up to that low standard that your father kind of put you at. because of the way that he responded to you. So keep that in mind, all right, guys, as we go along in this live chat, that self-fulfilling prophecy can be damaging. The other concept that I want you to keep in mind as we go along in this psychology of being disliked topic is something known as the in group and the out group, the in group and the out group. Here's what sociology tells us. Sociology tells us that we are human beings at the core who want to be accepted and approved of. And we also want to be accepted and approved of within the groups that we find important, our families, our friends, our work relationships, right? Our neighbors, we want to be approved of and accepted in such a way that it's almost a human basic need, I should say. It's almost like the need to eat, or the need to drink water because you're thirsty, or the need to be loved, right? And so the need to be included is at that level as well, right? It's a basic human need. So there's the in group and the out group concept that says we all have a basic need to be included and loved and wanted and liked. And so sometimes what happens is once we feel like we are in the in group, we often push other people that don't fit that mold. We either push them into the out group, or we kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for? We kind of disapprove of them. We don't like them and we don't accept them. So in order to stay in the in group, you have to almost function at a level that's similar to the other people in the group. Let me give you an example of that because it can be complicated. So let's say, for example, you are the disliked cousin, right? All your cousins, you have about 10 cousins, and all of you get together once a year for a cousin party. It's just a way to kind of reconnect. Well, you've got 10 cousins over there who are mingling and talking with you and, trying to connect with you and asking you how work has been, how things have been, and this, that, the other. And somewhere along that event, right, you start to feel like your 10 cousins are pulling away from you. And now they're over there in the corner talking amongst themselves. And you feel like they've kind of pushed you out of the group, right? And so maybe your cousins don't see that they have pushed you into the out group, right? You are no longer a part of that 10 cousin group, right? You've been pushed into the out group because maybe your expectations or your morals are different from theirs, or your values. Maybe something you said caused them to kind of huddle together and be in the in group and push you to the out group. Whatever the case, you may now start to feel like you have been pushed into the out group, right? You're outside of their group and they are in the in group. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go along in tonight's live chat. People who feel disliked or are disliked are often pushed into the out group, and the in group kind of stays huddled over here. Okay. The other term you want to think about as we go along is projection. Projection. In families where there's dislike or there's hate, and it's hard to connect with family because of those feelings, you want to keep in mind that this could possibly be projection. Maybe it's not you. Maybe you are not the reason why you feel disliked. Maybe it's that family member who is projecting their own negative feelings onto you. Maybe you're feeling disliked by them because the reality, if we flip this and play some psychology, if we turn this around on the family member who seems to dislike you, maybe there's some projection happening in this situation, right? And so the concept of projection says this, that if there is something bad going on the inside, you have a prejudice, a discrimination, a judgment, a criticism, whatever on the inside of you, and you can't own that, what do? You flip it around and you project it onto someone. So if you are the disliked within your family, keep in mind that maybe that uncle over there who's projecting onto you, these negative traits, maybe that's really what's going on in the inside of him, and it has nothing to do with you. But it's so much easier to push you over there into the disliked pile than it is to recognize that, wait a minute, I'm the problem, right? Okay, let me pause here. I see a lot of you chatting, so I want to make sure that I stay on top of these comments. Then I'm going to tell you what it is, what's happening during the process of being disliked. And we'll jump into this in just a second. Let me go to the chat box here and see what's going on. See what you guys are saying. I want to make sure that I stay up on the comments tonight. I don't want to get lost like I always do. All right. Let me keep going. Hello, SH. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. I didn't welcome you earlier. Welcome. Glad to have you. Black girls getting their shift together. Hello and welcome to the chat. I try so hard to say that the right way. I really do. Welcome and hello back to you. Catherine Ann, hello. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome to the chat. Catherine Ann says, I got straight A grades, never acknowledged, always ignored, and dismissed. Yes. So most narcissistic parents, I'm going to throw this in here for those of you who have narcissistic parents. Most narcissistic parents will really push those grades because grades are the only quantifiable data or data that a parent can have that proves that their kid is intelligent. Let me say that one more time. Narcissistic parents really look at those grades and they really push those high grades. Not all, but most, because that's the only quantified data that they have to prove that you are worthy and to prove that they are worthy, right? It's so much easier to say, my kid got A+ in school for several years in a row. That makes them feel wonderful. It feels so much better to say that than to look at your report card and say, okay, there's a B- in here. I once had a father who did that to one of my clients over 5 years ago. The family thankfully got better and moved on, and they didn't need therapy anymore. But the parents did not make my client, who was 17, feel very good about himself, because he would bring home a B, a B+, a B, a B-, and that was not acceptable. And so he would not only get his phone taken off of him, but he couldn't use the family car to go driving with his friends. So he was being punished for getting a B-, a B+, a B. And I thought that was just horrific, But over time, as I worked with the family, I could see that it really wasn't that he got a B that was the issue. The issue was how both of his narcissistic parents, primarily his dad, was so caught up in how that report card looked. It didn't have all these wonderful straight A's. It's like A, B, B, or AB. And he wasn't okay with that. It didn't look right to his narcissistic eyes. So that doesn't shock me. That's my long reply to your question, Catherine. Keisha Monique, hello and welcome. Glad to have you on tonight's live chat. I also see Crystal Seeker 71. Hello and welcome to the chat. Says, hello, Tamara. You're speaking so real. This is so true, and it's such a shame. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's detrimental. So we're going to continue on. I also see MS Kim 671 says, I'm getting triggered. I'm so sorry. And you know what I'm going to start doing at the beginning of every live chat before I start welcoming all of you? I need to make a note to myself to put a disclaimer at the top of my live chats that says this is going to be a tough topic tonight. So forgive me for not being mindful of that. Kyra knows 144 says self-gaslighting. Yes, a self-fulfilling prophecy is like self-gaslighting. Yes, it is. I love that. SH says, I think my father treats me how he was treated. He still is seriously out of touch, living in a false reality. Very much agree with that. SH, keep in mind that this may be projection. So your father treating you a certain way could very well be projection. Maybe he feels like that about himself too, the way that he treats you. That's the psychology of projection. That's one thing I highly agree with Sigmund Freud. He's the one that coined that term and that concept of there's something going on the inside of you, and you project that onto other people, making it their problem when the problem is actually you. So maybe that's how he felt about himself too, SH, the way that he treated you, unfortunately. Yeah, Courtney Fraser says, I am in the out group for sure. Absolutely. We're going to talk about it, so hang tight. Robert Redmond's Clip Channel, hello and welcome to the chat. Always glad to see you, and I love your icon photo. It reminds me of a picture of my great grandmother. I might bring it on one chat to let you see it. It really does take me back to my secondary or second heritage when I look at your photo. Alexandra Chisholm, I hope I said that correctly. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you in tonight's live. Says, my dad is and always been different with me and treated me as though I'm an irritating, not even allowing me to be myself. I'm going to say, treating me as though I'm an irritating person, not even allowing me to be myself, but others, he would be all in their faces and smiling even with my siblings. Yeah, it was definitely a different dynamic between you and your father than with your siblings. You know, that's very clear in your statement. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. NW, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. I was catching up on my consultation request, so I think I already emailed you. So just so you know, I did get back to you. Liberty Can, hello, welcome to the chat. Says, did the cousins exploit and gaslight you? Well, they were not my cousins, but that situation was one of my clients. I think or you may be asking for somebody in the chat box. I think that's what you're asking. Did the cousins exploit and gaslight you? You may be talking about somebody in the chat box. I don't know. But let me just say, I'm glad you mentioned that. The 10 cousins that I mentioned earlier was gaslighting my very own client. My client, she was pushed into the out group and she was gaslighted when she went to her 10 cousins and was like, I feel like you don't love me, I feel like you don't care about me. They basically brushed it off as, oh, that's something happening within you, but we love you, we would never exclude you. That was the response that she got. Kyra knows 144 says, it has had a profound effect on my life. Thank you for covering this, Tamara. Yes, you're welcome. Absolutely. I think a lot of you can relate to this topic for sure. Mama Lena, I don't remember seeing you. Welcome from Germany. Glad to have you on tonight's live chat. My dad is half German, and my brother knows how to speak the language, my younger brother, and he talks, sometimes he'll throw up a word every now and then, and I'm like, please don't do that. I don't know what you're saying. Don't do that. So, New Start, hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. Says, why do narcissists and histrionics try to, I'm going to say, impact your sleep? I'm not sure I know what you mean. New Start, can you give me some context? I'm happy to answer that question. I have a feeling it's a good one. Jasmine Wilby, hello, welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight's live. Says, why do I go to familiar toxic relationships? I'm gonna answer this and we're gonna get back into the content. Most likely because we are human beings of habit. So we are kind of molded, think of a cookie cutter. And you know how you can, kind of flatten out let's say, cookie batter, and it's all flat on the surface. You take your cookie cutter and you create these nice little shapes and put the shape on a cookie sheet. Well, we are kind of like that as human beings. It's who we are. And what happens is, we become almost accustomed to a certain pattern because it's safe, because it's familiar, because we know what it is. And so sometimes we repeat those negative relationships, even though we know they're bad for us. So let's say, for example, Jasmine, let's say, for example, your mom was abusive to you and all you have ever known is abuse. Well, you become accustomed to that. And over time, you then begin to seek out relationships of all capacities, right? Romance, friendships, work relationships, whatever. You begin to seek out relationships that mimics elements of your relationship with your mom. And so some of that is subconscious. You don't even know that it's in the back of your mind when you're communicating with somebody, and it's always at the last minute that you recognize that, oh my God, I've repeated the same pattern that I did in my past relationships. So keep those two things in mind. Sometimes it is a subconscious thing that's happening, and other times it's a piece of habit because we are molded by our previous experiences. And so we pursue new ones that are very, very similar. Anaphylaxis, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Before I jump back into the content, I'm going to answer Poppy444 says, a lot of bad memories. I wish I could just forget it all. Yes, absolutely. At some point, I'm going to bring up the conversation of traumatic memories on a live chat. So Let me know in the chat box at the end if you want me to focus on that, because that could be a topic of next live chat. I think it would be helpful for you guys to learn about trauma memories and where they go, what's the mechanism of them, and so forth. We could talk about that for years. So let me know if you want me to touch on that. I'm happy to. Okay, let me get a sip of water, guys. Okay. One more question I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to jump back into the content. Barb Pace Lamb says, is post-traumatic stress disorder synonymous with narcissistic personality disorder? Absolutely not. So here's how I'm going to break this down. Hopefully this will make sense. You want to separate the two. So post-traumatic stress disorder is the result of a traumatic experience, and it is more so a reaction to a traumatic experience that has shook your world, right? It's more of a mental, physical, and neurological disorder or diagnosis. I'll put it that way. It's a psychological, a mental, emotional, and physiological, as well as neurological condition. Narcissistic personality disorder is a personality disorder that really far removes you from being able to connect with other people, right? There's no empathy. A lot of times, individuals with a post-traumatic stress disorder have a lot of empathy, which is why they were traumatized in the first place. They understand things, they understand life, they're very interconnected. That's separate from narcissistic personality disorder. Now, you may be wondering, well, what about those research studies where they say, narcissists often have traumatic experiences? That is true. And maybe they have had a traumatic experience and they've become narcissistic over time. But those, again, are two separate issues, because we're talking about a neurological, physiological, and psychological condition, PTSD, versus a personality disorder, which is very hard to treat. PTSD is a little bit easier to treat, and it can go away. Narcissistic personality disorder is just a part of who you are as a person. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let me get back into the content, guys. Let's talk about, what is happening. What is happening here in the brain when the family member is kind of starting to dislike you, right? Research suggests this, that there's various parts of the brain that is activated when human beings look at things that they dislike, and the pieces of the brain engaged in the process of dislike has a lot to do with not only our emotional memories, but also other parts in the brain that involves emotion, addiction, impulse control, so the prefrontal cortex, which is behind the forehead. There's also some other parts of the brain that I could bring in here, which I'm going to have a video for you guys tomorrow night. So I will put all this information in that video for you so you can rewind and go back and kind of review some of this, because it can get pretty complicated. But there's a variety of pieces of the brain that is involved in the process of dislike. So let's say, for example, for you, you are trying to hold on to your family, you're trying to be family oriented, you really want to love your family, but they are doing things that are harmful to you. They're pushing you away, they're making you hurt, they're making you feel bad about yourself. Maybe they've disowned you. Whatever your family has done to hurt you, now it's possibly really difficult for you to turn around and start to like them again. Maybe you've developed some kind of resentment towards them because of how they've treated you, right? And that is a normal process, and that is a neurological process. Let me talk about the amygdala briefly and how this might work for you. So we all have in the middle of the brain an almond-sized structure. It is literally an almond-sized structure known as the amygdala. I talk about it all the time on this channel. What happens in situations and families where you feel rejected and disliked, your brain starts to grab onto those really bad memories where you were disliked, you felt not very accepted. You felt like you were being treated like you were less than, right? So you may have felt like your family member was being condescending. Maybe you felt you were being rejected harshly. Maybe you felt you were being misunderstood. All of those emotions, the amygdala is trying to grasp. It's trying to understand the significance of what's going on in your mind and your heart, right? And so the amygdala is invested with that responsibility. So let's say all of this is happening around Christmas, right? You have bad memories of Christmas time where your family has just made you feel terrible. Maybe they said some things about you or to you that was hurtful. Your amygdala is kind of now working with that experience, and it's really piecing together what you're feeling in that moment. It has no ability to reason. So your amygdala is really grappling with what's going on in your heart and soul. That's really what it's doing in that moment. And the more pain you feel, right, the brain begins to cement that emotion with that experience. So that Christmas experience with your rejecting family who seems to dislike you, the amygdala is now bridging together that reality of your family disliking you to your brain. And your brain, your amygdala, is really grappling with how you're feeling in that moment. Okay. The other part of the amygdala, and it's attached to the amygdala, is something called the hippocampus. And the hippocampus deals with memories as well, and it gives context to your emotional experiences. I hope that makes sense. So, your amygdala is saying, I'm hurting. I feel rejected. I feel disliked. I feel unloved. And now the hippocampus is coming in and saying, so where is this happening? And your hippocampus is now trying to make sense out of your location. Well, this was at a Christmas party at home. Cousins were present, uncle was present, aunt was present, niece was present. And so your hippocampus really almost like it's painting a picture, right? It gives your emotions and your amygdala that context. And so your brain now has to live with that. Now it's become imprinted on your brain that you're disliked, you're unloved, and here's the experience where you felt this the most. Does that make sense, guys? I see you chatting, and I think it's connecting for a lot of you. So keep those two things in mind. Your almond-sized amygdala is saying, I feel the pain of this rejection so much so that this has created an imprint on my heart and on my mind. And your hippocampus comes in and says, oh, and don't forget, this painful experience happened during Christmas on this date at this time and with these people. And so your brain is now connecting all of that. And that is often what causes post traumatic stress disorder, complex PTSD, depression, and anxiety, right? Just those two structures working together to make sense out of your reality. Now, let me tell you about the disliking family member. Research has shown us in something known as the fMRI. I'm going to show you this briefly. I need to get paper. Why do I do this every live chat? I have no idea. Hold on, I'm gonna get some paper. Bear with me, guys. Okay. I swear I have ADHD. Something is wrong with me. Every live chat, okay, I have to demonstrate something and I don't think ahead of time. Maybe you'll need some paper. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. So, what am I saying to you guys? What am I focusing on now? The fMRI. So, the fMRI is this. You guys have probably never heard of this. Here it is. fMRI. The fMRI, whoa, is called the functional magnetic resonance imaging. So, you know how sometimes if you have a medical condition, you are put into the MRI machine? Well, the functional MRI, magnetic resonance imaging machine, can, with a functional MRI, the brain can be observed during certain activities. And so research shows that in people who have a strong dislike towards you, so this is your family, let's say, and you feel like you're strongly disliked, if we put one of your family members in a fMRI machine, then we can look at, as we talk about you to them, as we mention your name, as we talk about some things that maybe they felt you did to them, we can actually use the fMRI to see the impact, the neurological impact on them of their brain and what's going on in the brain when we mention you. So let's say, for example, I'll clarify this with an example. Let's say your aunt doesn't like you. You know she doesn't like you. She hasn't liked you for many years. If we take your aunt, okay, and we put her in an fMRI machine and we talk about you to her and her strong emotions start up and she starts talking about all the negative things that you've done to her, and she starts getting upset, we can actually look at that fMRI data and we can say, my goodness, this part of the brain is activating because she's talking about something that she strongly dislikes, and that would be you, for example. Research suggests that there's other parts of the brain that is also impacted, and these parts of the brain really are very activated when that person talks about that very thing that they dislike. So if we're looking at your family members and you feel that they have strong dislike or hate towards you, there's also a neurological piece to the puzzle for them. There's a lot of activation in the brain. So not only is your brain being activated because you feel disliked, but their brain is being activated as well because they dislike you. So both of you are having a neurological experience in response to the other. All right, I'm going to pause. And see what you guys are saying in the chat box. And I want to tell you what's happening to you, okay? Because I think a lot of you are probably on this live chat tonight because you want to know what is going on. What is the psychology of being disliked within my family? So I'm going to tell you what's going on with you. And then I also want to give you some information on how to emerge from this place that you may be in. Let me check the chat box, guys, and see where you guys are and what you're talking about. Napalm 1334, hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you and thank you so much for that. I'm glad this is a topic you can relate to. Chrome Butterfly says, how many of our problems are created by narcissists? Truly. What would the world be like without narcissists? Oh my goodness, that's a great question. I don't have that data, right? I don't have that data to say how many problems are caused by our narcissists. That's such a great question. We don't have that data, and I certainly don't have that data. If anybody knows if there's any data on that, let me know, because I'm not aware of anything. I can say, however, that when we are talking about topics such as toxic family members, when we are talking about immature parents, when we are talking about emotionally detached parents, when we're talking about attachment theory, we are talking about narcissistic parents for the most part, because most of our research is centered around the narcissistic parents. If we're talking about attachment theory, we are also, in a sense, talking about narcissistic parents because they don't have the capacity to empathize and to connect and to build these emotional bonds with us. So the only thing I can say to that wonderful question, Chrome Butterfly, is we don't have the numbers or the data to answer that, but we can say that we are impacted a great deal in our relationships by narcissists. And I might as well throw in sociopaths as well. Courtney Frazier says, I felt like B's and C's were not acceptable. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's how you know something's going on with your parent. Like, I can't get an occasional B or C. Like, what are you trying to say here? I'm not supernatural here. I can make a mistake. Elizabeth, hello and welcome. I'm so glad to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, and I owe you a response on my Instagram page. I am so sorry for that. Kyra knows 144 says CPTSD is real. Yes, it is. Let me give you guys just a little bit of knowledge on CPTSD, because we are talking about the psychology of feeling disliked and being disliked. And so complex PTSD is a part of that puzzle. So here's what happens with complex PTSD. If you are a child and you feel disliked by extended family, by your parents, and you experience that over the course of your childhood development, over the course of your adolescent development, or even over the course of your adulthood, right? So you've had many rounds of feeling disliked by your family. Over time, your brain can no longer take that constant beating, if you will. Right. Because again, don't forget your amygdala. It's constantly looking for emotional threats in your environment. And if you have dealt with your family growing up who makes you feel like you are disliked and unloved and rejected, and you've dealt with that many, many years over time, complex PTSD is likely to impact your life in some way. The sad part, guys, is that no clinician in the United States who uses this manual here, I don't know if I want to move this. I'm not going to move it because I'm afraid I may do something wrong. So I'm not going to move it. I have the DSM right here underneath my lamp. But if a clinician sees that you have complex PTSD and they want to diagnose you, we can't go to our manual and diagnose you. A therapist is not allowed and cannot diagnose you with CPTSD unless you are in a country that recognizes it. And unfortunately, in the United States, we do not recognize CPTSD as a clinical diagnosis. Do I and many of you think that it should be a diagnosis? 100%. 100%. Kyra knows 144, you are correct that CPTSD is real. And we need to figure out as clinicians how to diagnose that. Where's the research? We need to get some, right? We're a little bit behind there. R.A. Andrews says, I was told I was equal with my siblings, but was treated as less than. It was like Orwell's novel Animal Farm. Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. All the animals are equal, but some more equal than others. Absolutely. My Lord. That's a very good point. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Yeah. Elizabeth says, my mother didn't even care about my education. Yep. Yep. Sounds like a parent who's emotionally detached. Jasmine Wilby says, my toxic parents deny my reality. Yep. I get that a lot. I get that a lot in my office when I have very toxic families come into my office. The child will sit in front of me. And when I say child, I mean like somebody between the ages of 5 to 18. When the child would sit in front of me, typically the child gives me their version, and the parent comes by and says, that's not how it happened. That's not true at all. That didn't happen. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, should I intervene? And sometimes I will intervene and I'll say, let me just make a suggestion here. Instead of rebutting what your kid is saying, let's say that that's not how I remember it. Because we all have individual experiences, and maybe that's the way your kid remembers it. So I'm totally with you, Elizabeth. Was it Elizabeth I was talking to? I swear I'm older than my late 30s because I can't keep up. Jasmine, it was Jasmine's comment. So yes, Jasmine, sometimes parents will deny your reality. Sometimes that's projection, and sometimes that's a protective mechanism for them. Your reality doesn't matter to me because that never happened. Norm Special, hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says, I've taken a year off for my family. I don't blame you. Good one. I feel great. We have a complicated past with lots of toxic dysfunction. How can I test the waters to see if we can interact after taking this year off? Well, it sounds like you took a break to kind of get to know yourself better, put some boundaries up. I think the first thing to consider is this, is it worth me stepping back into the fire? Because what if the fire is still burning? Do I need to put my foot back in there? Or do I need to just stay out here and wait until somebody approaches me? Or do I need to kind of test the waters by sending a text the next holiday and saying hello, and then keeping the conversation going after that? So, to me, baby steps is better than just jumping in. So consider that. I would maybe test the waters a little bit there by, number one, kind of looking at the past year, right? Did you communicate with them at all? Because it might be a little weird after a whole year not talking to you, then boom, there you are. So you want to consider that. And then I would also suggest, in my humble opinion, I would suggest, because I don't know your family, but I would suggest kind of, considering maybe the next holiday, say Happy Easter or happy Memorial Day and see if they respond and try to keep the conversation going that way. That would be my honest opinion on that one. Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together says, agreed about the projection. I'm triggered too. I'm so sorry. This is a tough topic. And there's a reason why there's a lot of people on this live chat tonight, because it is a very, very, very common issue, but not talked about enough. And it is triggering. I agree. Fairy Girl, I'm sorry. I don't mean to ignore you. She says, respect. We all have had very similar, yet also unique adventures. Very, very true. Thank you for pointing that out. Kevin Tui, I hope that's correct. Hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Glad to see you. Indigo Glow is just simply shaking their head. Deb says, gotta say, I'm glad I'm in the out group in my nuclear family. I'm the only one who is empathic, kind, and warm. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Sometimes it is a blessing to be in the out group, right? Because the out group, and I'm going to tell you how this works in a little bit too. The out group, the individual who's pushed into the out group can actually find some jewels and gems there, right? Because then you get a chance to step outside of that toxic family dynamic and look inside like you're looking through a window, and sometimes everything becomes really clear in that moment, right? And you can look at your family from the outside and say, I didn't see that when I was in the in group, or I didn't see that before because I was too close, right? So sometimes being in the out group, Deb, you're right, it can be very helpful. Okay, let's jump back in. Okay, guys, let me tell you what happens to you. So your family dislikes you, they've rejected you, you feel it. You don't have to know it, right? You feel that. We feel that. We are very emotional, spiritual human beings. And it really doesn't matter what you believe, whether you believe in spirituality or not. We are spiritual beings, and so we have a soul and a heart, and to me it goes deeper than the brain, right? All of our sophisticated neurology cannot really beat what happens in our spirit, in our heart, and in our soul. And so sometimes we can feel on the inside of us that we are disliked and rejected by family. They don't even have to part a word of dislike. They could just be there in your space, and you know that you're unwelcomed or disliked. So here's what happens to you. The first thing, and research suggests this happens as well, you're going to experience self-doubt, self-sabotage, and self-hate. So self-doubt, self-sabotage, and self-hate. That emotional feeling of my family dislikes me, they reject me, that sticks with you. Remember your amygdala, remember your hippocampus. Your amygdala is cementing and gluing all those emotional experiences you have had feeling disliked, and your hippocampus doesn't help because it comes along and it says, remember when this happened on this date at this time. And so those two team players in your brain is causing that self-doubt, that self-hatred, or that self-sabotage that you're experiencing. There's also what we call emotional unresponsiveness that can happen to you. You can get to a place where you either stop feeling completely or you feel a lot. And that kind of clouds your view and your thinking and your processing. And so then you just become numb. You know, it's almost like your brain says, I can't do this anymore. I'm too full. And then it shuts down, right? Kind of like you're turning off a light switch in your room, it all shuts down. The other thing that can happen to you is a negative worldview. You start to see the world through the lens of your family. Your family dislikes you, they make you feel rejected. Well, you put on their glasses and you start seeing yourself that way. You start seeing the world that way. You start becoming defensive with the outside world. You start slamming doors on people who maybe could love you and be a part of your life. You put up defense walls that are way up here, right? This is all because of this feeling of rejection and dislike within your family. There's also what we call dependency. So you become really dependent on other things in your life. Or you have, and this is a new word that I'm going to bring to the channel, we'll talk about this more, it's called defensive independence. And I'm going to tell you what that means. So you have either a strong dependency on certain things, or you experience what's called a defensive independence. An over dependence on things could be an addiction. It could be pleasurable activities that you've become dependent upon. It could be toxic relationships you've become dependent upon. So codependency. So that over dependence kind of gets triggered when your family makes you feel over an extended period of time rejected and unloved. Defensive independence says this, that I now feel that I have to fight for my life because you reject me, you dislike me. Well, since you dislike me, I'm going to go this way in my life and I'm not going to listen to you because I'm tired of feeling rejected. Don't follow me. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to leave you alone. So it's kind of like this, sometimes like this angry, I'm going to fight kind of thing. It's almost like, I guess I could say this. It's almost like fight or flight mode. You know, you get fed up with those feelings of rejection and feeling disliked. And you get to a place where you say, you know what? I'm going to fight and I'm going to make something of myself. So it's called defensive independence. The other thing is you start to internalize and externalize. So maybe you internalize what they think about you, what you feel that they believe about you, and it's hard to see who you really are, or you externalize. So, you know, you take in all that pain that they're creating for you, and then you push it on to the world. Maybe you've got a bad attitude, maybe you're angry, maybe you're resentful, maybe you don't trust people, maybe you're not giving people a chance, right? So you internalize and then you externalize. So these are the things that happens when you are in a family that dislikes you or you feel like they reject you. Now, let me highlight briefly here before we jump into what you can do to kind of rise above this. Let me also say that research suggests, and I also have seen this too, that family members who strongly reject you, they strongly, you know, dislike you, they tend to lack three important things. Humility. They don't seem to understand that disliking you and rejecting you is something that makes them look bad, and it's unfair because somebody else could do that to them, and somebody else could possibly see them in a negative light, and they wouldn't like that, would they? It's kind of arrogant to say that I dislike you over there, I don't want to be a part of you, I reject you. You know, you're not a god. Like, you know, to reject you and and to tell you that I don't like you or to treat you like you're less than, that's not okay. So they lack humility. They think they're better most of the time. Secondly, they lack self-compassion. They tend to be very critical of themselves, and they also you know, lack compassion of other people as well. They have no compassion for you. So the in group within your family, those groupies that get together and maybe talk about you, they push you into the out group. They have no compassion. They have no ability to look at you way over there and say, let me just pull her in. Like she looked like she's all alone over in the corner. They don't have that. They don't really care because again, they're arrogant most of the time. They're not humble. They don't have humility. Research also suggests that they also lack knowledge about how the family system can be so toxic that it influences these negative views against you. So let's say that you are the rejected, disliked person. A family member may totally lack awareness that their dislike of you is not because they personally dislike you, it's because they see other family members dislike you, and so now they're going to dislike you as well. So they tend to be very uneducated about how family dynamics can influence how they themselves feel about other people like you. I hope that makes sense. Let me go to the chat box, take a break here, get a drink of water, and then I'm going to give you some tips on how to get out of this, how to emerge in a healthier, stronger way, and then we're going to wrap up. Okay. Robert Redmond's clip channel says, thank you, Tamara. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Says it is a distant relative of mine from White Earth Reservation. Whoa, yeah, I know a lot about that. I know a lot about that reservation. Yeah, I gotcha. It's an earlier conversation. So if you guys want to know what we're talking about, scroll back as soon as we go off. You can do the replay. Yes, you're welcome, NW. You're welcome. Okay, let me keep going through these comments, guys. Make sure I'm not missing anything. That's important here. Fairy Girl says toxic people will, regardless of their relationship or ethnicities. I'm not sure. I think I may have missed that. I'll come back to you, Fairy Girl. I think I missed the punch word there. Raymond Vincent Garcia Jr., hello and welcome to the chat. I'm behind, so you probably have been here a little while. You are not late. Hello, welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Kathy, oh, I'm going to mess up this last name. Fit Girl Chapel. I hope I got that right. Welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. Welcome back. Says, yeah, I actually made a live. Love you, Tamara. Thank you so much. Much love to you too. I appreciate all your support on this channel. T Mac, hello and welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Says, my grandma adopted is after my mother abandoned me and my brother. They were enemies before I was born. She treated us worse than my cousins because of that. And for us being lighter skinned, yeah, sometimes there's a racial component in this dislike and rejection, isn't there? Yeah. I've had that in my family as well because my family's so split down the middle, and a lot of the older generations lacked knowledge on our heritage. And it wasn't until I had to write my first book with New Harbinger Publications on race, marginalization, and discrimination. It wasn't until that work, which was over 5 years ago, that I was able to pull my heritage and the data that gave me answers to a lot of things. And I realized, oh my God, we are Native American Apache. I didn't know that my family had that connection, and that we could become a part of the heritage of the Native Americans. I had no idea. I also didn't know my family was part German. I didn't know my dad had part German in his blood. I didn't know so we were very, very lost and blind in the older generations. And then when I was born, I'm like, we're not going to continue to do this. We're going to come off of this place of being lost and confused about who we are. And we're going to figure out what's in our bloodline. But T Mac, to get to what you're saying, I did feel that rejection, like I'm sure you did, from family members who just kind of stand back and look at you like, you think you're better, don't you? Because you're half Native American Apache, you think you're better. Or sometimes there's this fight because of differences in looks. So that's a part of this too. So I'm glad you brought that up. I hate to say it, but that's a part of this. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I'm looking at some of these chats. Hello, Real Talk with D podcast says, hi, I love your videos. Thank you so much. And hi and welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Anaphylaxis. Oh God. The last thing I need to do is end this chat prematurely. We're gonna wrap up in a little bit, guys. I'm just gonna make sure to give you the last piece of content, and then we're gonna go. Anaphylaxis says, I have forgotten a lot of my childhood. Absolutely. I think we need to talk about trauma memories. So let me know in the chat box if you want me to talk about that next week live, because there's a lot of psychological and neurological reasons why you can't remember your childhood. And I'm happy to go through that with all of you. Crystal Seeker 71 says, I would love to hear about trauma memories, Tamara. Yes, absolutely. So that is on my list. That's on my list. Yep. I'm looking at some of your comments. Zora Mina, I hope that's correct. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Thank you for the hearts. Glad to see you tonight. Poppy444 says, a lot of us are traumatized. Yeah. And I hate to say that, but a lot of us do have some kind of historical trauma that's attached to us for sure. Jessica J, hello and welcome. I think I welcomed you. I don't know. I don't remember what happened 2 seconds ago. Says, yes, Tamara, please discuss trauma memories. Thank you so much for all you do. Yes, you're welcome. Absolutely. We will talk about that. Yeah, Raymond Vincent Garcia Jr. says, I grew up witnessing toxic relationships. And in my younger years, I seeked toxic relationships and realized I was toxic person in the relationship as well. Yeah, sometimes you can play off that other toxic person, and it's like a toxic dance between the two of you until you wake up and you're like, wait a minute, this dance has to stop, right? Yeah. Chrome Butterfly says, please, if you discuss trauma memories, discuss trauma bonding. Thank you. Yes, 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 you're welcome. I will add that for sure. I will. Oh, hello and welcome to the chat. D Gen Woke, welcome. And yes, I will talk about that topic. Thank you. Okay. Just scrolling through. Bear with me. Then we're going to jump back in. Robert Chapman's clip channel. Thank you so much for the live chat, and you're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate you. Jasmine Wilby says, Tamara, thank you for gifting us with your knowledge. You are an angel. Oh, thank you so much. You guys are angels. I love this channel. I was just talking to someone today who might have some insights for us, in the future, may have some things that they can help bring to the channel. And I was telling them that I truly love the community here on the channel. So I am blessed to know you guys. Okay, let me jump back into the content and then I am going to wrap this up. Alexandra Chisholm says, hello, Tamara. I appreciate you reading my comment. Yes, you're welcome. I love reading your comments. I think you guys need to know that I see you, right? And that you are also being heard. Susan Wohow, I probably said that all wrong. Welcome. You're not late. I'm glad to have you. And SH says, in some cases, okay, let's move that. That's the end of another sentence. I don't think someone with PTSD desires to hurt others or has joy at someone else's troubles. Right. So earlier we were talking about the difference between PTSD and narcissistic personality disorder. SH just summed that up for you. That PTSD, individuals with PTSD do not desire to hurt you. Someone with narcissistic personality disorder most likely wants to hurt you or will do things to hurt you. Hello, Cherries Jubilee. Glad to see you back on the live chat and welcome. Thank you for that. Glad to have you. I also see a long time no see person, Jacob Taylor. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you on tonight's live chat. Okay, let me tell you how to kind of let me tell you why you don't have to walk away. I'm going to put it that way. You don't have to walk away from a family that dislikes you and rejects you, feeling rejected. You can actually walk away and say, you know what? This is how I'm going to restructure this. And that is called cognitive restructuring. There's a way that you can realistically and honestly look at your situation. You don't have to lie to yourself. You don't have to, twist things in your mind to make yourself feel better. You can actually, excuse me, you can actually restructure how you're seeing things so that you can move ahead in a strong way. So I want you to kind of look at your situation and say, okay, I may have been rejected, I may have been disliked, or I may be rejected and disliked, but here's what could happen to me. And that's a renewal of who you are, a creation of a new you, or a new idea of you, a renewal of who you are. Once you recognize that you are disliked and rejected, you can kind of walk away from that, right? Maybe put some boundaries up or get away from that family member or whatever. You can kind of go over here in your healing corner and you can renew yourself. You can strengthen yourself with new knowledge, with coming on YouTube, finding videos that speaks to you, by finding a spiritual passion, whatever it may be, right? You can renew yourself, or you can create a new or you can create a new idea of you. Change how you're seeing yourself in your mind. When you're rejected and disliked, you've now adjusted how your family has seen you. So you want to get rid of that, right? You want to purge that, if you will. Get rid of it. You don't need it. Also, too, I think you should allow their dislike of you and rejection to motivate you to be very different. They have a mold of how they see you, and it may not be easy for them to excuse the way that they see you. Remember, they're having a neurological experience as well because they dislike you or they reject you. So their brain is telling them something about you that's not it's not correct, it's not right, but sometimes it's hard for them to get outside of what their brain is telling them. So you should use that as motivation to be very different from what they say you are, right? So you can kind of advance yourself in a way that says, you know what, you don't like me, you reject me, that's all right. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to be better than I was last year, or better than I was when you first saw me, or you last saw me. So you can kind of restructure your thinking in that way. You can also find some kind of drive and passion to push you ahead. Once your family says, I reject you, I dislike you, somehow your heart kind of wants to hold on to that for a long time. It may be a grudge, it may be fear, it may be anger, whatever. You can own those emotions, but you can also find some kind of passion in your life that drives you to the next level, right? Because if your family that rejects you and dislikes you sees you doing well, that's not really important if they see you. But let's say they do see you doing really well, it's really going to twist their head, right? Because they're going to want to know, what did I ever dislike about that family member? Like, he's highly successful over there. He has a really good life. Like, and it may cause them to kind of pause in their own ways and say, we didn't handle this right. Like we were not right towards this family member. So find some kind of way to find some drive, some passion, something that can push you ahead, right? Also look at this as an opportunity to kind of clear your vision, cry it out, move away from it, put some boundaries up, whatever you need to do with that family member who rejects and dislikes you. Allow those some of that pain to kind of clear your vision so you can move ahead in a healthy way. In other words, push past that burden that's in your way. I told one of my clients on last Friday, she's struggling with the same issue. And she said, I just feel like I'm not able to climb this mountain. Like, it's so big for me. And I told her, you need to take one step at a time until you feel like you have gotten on the top of that mountain. And that may be as simple as, structuring your daily life, putting the right people in your path, changing jobs, finding a passion or a motivation, getting married, right? Really educating your children, whatever it is. The more positive things you do in your life, you're really climbing that tough ladder and you're getting to the top of that mountain. And so she took that away and she called me today and she's like, Tamara, this is great. I feel good. So, try to clear your vision with the pain that they've caused. I also think too, if you recognize that you are broken because of what they've done to you, once you accept that, you know, I think that you can move ahead quicker. It's only when you're having a hard time accepting how they see you that your ability to grow is stunted, right? Because again, you're up against this mountain. So you have to accept, if you haven't already, this is who they see me as, and I have to be okay with that. It's not true, but I have to be okay with that. And I will be, right? And then you can build your new future that way. And I also think too, you can begin to inspect what's wrong. What's wrong with my family? Why did they reject me? Why did they dislike me? You may not be able to do that while you're in that craziness, right? While you're in that toxicity. Or you may not be able to do that where you're carrying all this pain about being rejected and disliked. So you really have to step outside that chaos, and take a break. Like somebody in the chat box just said they did for a whole year. Take a break and then look at your family from the outside and try to inspect what's wrong here. Something's wrong with this picture, right? No family member should be unjustifiably disliked and rejected. That means something is wrong in that toxic family. Okay, guys, I'm going to go to the chat box and then we're going to wrap up because we are way over. My goodness. I don't even know if I have time to read all these comments. Cascadia Condor is talking about pets. Yes. I'm not going to read this comment. I'm just going to leave it up here for you guys to see while I drink some water. But let me do say, pets are amazing. I love them. I love them. My favorite thing is to go in my garden. Believe it or not, I'm a gardener at heart. I know what I'm doing in a garden. You know what I mean? And I love the nature, and I love listening to the birds, and I love seeing them hop around in my garden, and eat out of their bird feeders. So I think pets are very renewing. So Cascadia Condor, I agree with that. I'm going to drink a sip of water, but Justice has a great question. Excuse me, guys. Justice says, I have a question about parents and siblings destroying your things and sabotaging because they basically hate. Or is it more of not wanting us to exist? I probably read that wrong. I have a question about parents and siblings destroying your things and sabotaging because they basically hate. Or is it more of not wanting us to exist, even being left off of the family tree? I think it's both, Justice. I think it's both. It's both. I think in most families, every family has a dynamic. Even my own family, we have a dynamic. And the dynamic is everybody's kind of lined up in a family and they all play different roles, whether they realize they play those roles or not. And there's a unspoken language within the family that connects everyone. And so to destroy your things or to not put you a part of the family tree, I think is a passive aggressive way to say you're not included. You don't belong here. So I would take it as that. I would take it as that for sure. Jasmina. Ooh, I like that name. It's a very pretty name. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Says, I'm digging this live. So informative. So glad to hear that. I'm glad this is helpful to you. Anyways, welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in a long time. Welcome. Liberty Can says, what's your thoughts on MK Ultra? Operation, pay-per-click or option? Okay. Yeah. Did you ask me this once before, Liberty Can? I think you did. I'm going to take a picture of your comment because I have Ronald Zion to respond to. I have so many other people to respond to. And I'm going to put your comment in the community center and everybody else's, that post questions for me in these live chats, and I'm going to answer them. Okay. I'm not going to answer it now live, but I will definitely answer it in the community section of my channel. I'm planning on doing that because a lot of you ask me questions and I can't answer it during the live chat. Live Life says it's incredibly disorienting when parents reject you 85% of the time, but use the family ties to pull you back in. Yeah. Pretended to somewhat like you for the remaining 15%, like a puppet master. Like, Live Life, do you want to swap places with me? I can get up, you can sit here, because that is such a great thing to say. I agree with that. Here's what happens. I think families recognize that the foundation of family connection is to be connected. The foundation of family existence is to be connected. And so even the evil family members, right? Even the family members who are dark, they have those dark empath traits or those dark triad traits. Even the narcissistic family member, even the family member that has traits of Machiavellianism, where they get this desire out of creating trouble for you. Even those family members, as skewed and toxic as they are, still want some normalcy in communicating with their family or within the family. Does that make sense? So I think that's why sometimes you may be pulled back in, because it's a natural flow of how families engage, right? It's kind of like families who treat each other like there's no tomorrow. I'll put it that way for lack of a clinical term. And when Christmas comes around, everybody's texting and smiling and wanting to do Christmas photos, and you may feel like, wait, you didn't talk to me when my great grandmother died, so why are we talking now, for example? You know what I mean? So I think in toxic families, there's this internalized way that we have learned how to be, and we pull family members in even when we don't like them. And I don't want to really say we. I'm talking about the toxic family members. Raymond Vincent Garcia says, the more pain I felt, the more I drank. Yeah, to cope. Now 6 years sober. Congratulations, Raymond. That's awesome. And I think about what I used to drink, still reserve 211 malt liquor. Yeah. 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 I had a client like you, Raymond, and he was a drinker too, but he was an emotional drinker. Anytime he would have an emotion, he would down some liquor. And I told him, I think anytime you reach for the liquor, I think your pain is feeling as powerful as that alcohol that you're taking in. Does that make sense? The pain is almost as intense as that alcoholic beverage that you're taking in. So if he reached for liquor, the emotion must have been really, really intense. Okay, guys, I think I have everyone. I don't know. Let me make sure that oh my Lord, I swear my fingers stopped working at a certain time of night. I hit all the wrong buttons. Okay, Havana, I wanted to say hello to you. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you tonight. Didn't want to not say, um, yeah, let me put this up here for Raymond. Yeah. Let me keep going, okay? SW, hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you tonight. Says fascinating subject, Tamara. Thank you so much for the helpful chats. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm just scrolling through, making sure I didn't miss anything because I always do. And let me just tell you guys, whatever I don't get tonight, just put it in the comment section for me. I will get to it for sure. V, hello and welcome. Glad to have you tonight. Says experienced lead narcissist aunt who gaslit me in front of family and has since kept sending flying monkeys around to renew injuries. Excuse me. It's like everyone forgot they knew me for themselves. Yeah, that's a good comment. Sometimes it is like that you have one toxic family member, they spread their poison to all the other family members, and then now Uncle BB is seeing you as an outsider. Aunt CC, Aunt Nunu over there, and cousin BB now sees you as the enemy because that one family member over there does. That's awful. That's a prime example of the in group, out group that I talked about at the very beginning. It's very sad. Kyra knows 444 says this is empowering. That's wonderful. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Elizabeth said, it would be good if a portable FMRI would exist to scan if a person likes me or not. Ooh, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. You know, I encourage you to Google this, guys. It's called the psychology of hate. I would Google the psychology of hate. You should be able to learn some things on Google, and pull some research studies from a lot of the websites that talks about the study of hate, or the psychology of hate. And you will see that fMRI machines are typically used to study hate. Isn't that interesting? Hello to Travis Hall. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you on tonight's live. Okay, Courtney Fraser sharing her experience. I'm going to go to anyways. Anyways says it's impossible to get along with people who wish you didn't exist. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because you have to constantly put in the back of your mind, this person doesn't like me, right? Okay, I think I got everyone. No, I didn't. EB, hello and welcome. Yes, just in time. Glad to have you. We're going to sign off in like literally 2 seconds. And just trying to make sure I get all of you. Adrian Paul, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I saw some of your comments. Yeah, isn't Deb considerate of the group? I agree. I agree. I agree. Kevin, Tui, yeah, you're welcome. I see the hearts. Susan Wolhow, I hope I'm saying that right, asks the question or says, it is possible that CPTSD is from going against the norm. Yeah, that's a possibility too. Yep. Yep. Scott McPhee, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. Okay. She prays, says, my toxic narcissist aunts am just afraid I will spill the tea. They are worse to me every year. Yes, toxic family members don't want you telling things, right? No, it's going to reveal them in a way that they don't want to be revealed. Princess Rising, hello and welcome says, I did my degree, etc. As soon as I got chronically ill afterwards, they completely stopped supporting me financially, emotionally, or spiritually. How do I handle being worthless to them now? My immediate internal response to how do I handle being worthless to them now is to see the worth within you and put them out of your world, put them out of your mind, right? Because them seeing you as worthless should not dictate how you see yourself, right? So I hope that you will replay this live chat and get all of those little tidbits that I gave you throughout this live chat. See them as less important. The more they hate you and reject you, see them as less important in your life. If there's no real reason why they are treating you that way, don't see them as important. Yeah. It's, I spoke to one of my 15-year-old kiddos that came to see me for therapy this week. She's being bullied in school. And here's the question she asked me, and this may be helpful to you, Princess Rising. She says, Miss Tamara, I don't know why my bullies bully me every day. She's being bullied by 3 girls on a basketball team, and they are scary to her. She's like this cute little, prim, proper, sweet little angel 15-year-old. And she's got these really tall girls who's bullying her. And she says to me, she says, Miss Tamara, I know I probably shouldn't be asking you this, but how do I make my bullies like me? And so, Princess Rising, that's kind of what I hear in the back of my mind as you ask that question. How do I handle being worthless to them? It's like, you have to recreate your own existence. You have to find some strength within yourself. You have to move away from them in some ways, put some boundaries up if you can, and cultivate who you are outside of them. And that's the best way to feel empowered and be empowered against your family bullies. I'll put it that way. Sean Hammer, hello and welcome to the chat. Haven't seen you in so long, so welcome. We're going to wrap up like right now. I see a couple of people I want to comment on. Shar S, hello and welcome, says, it's hard because you keep dealing with the same spirit, just different bodies and faces. You are so brainwashed. You think you deserve bad treatment. Absolutely. Brainwashed is the psychological term you want to keep in mind as you think about how your family has impacted you. I love that word for this chat, because family who rejects you and dislike you, they can really brainwash you over time with their behaviors, in a way where you start to believe that you are worthless. I agree with that. I agree with that. Blue Galaxy, thank you so much for the super chat. I love that. Really appreciate that. You never have to do that. So I'm grateful when you do. Thank you. Thank you. B, hello and welcome to the chat. Glad to have you. Glad to have you. Okay, I'm so sorry, guys. Oh, God. Every time I get ready to say, okay, I'm going to sign off, I see somebody else I want to kind of talk with. I don't want you guys to feel like I'm not getting to all of you. Hanafa Al Amin, I think I pronounced it last chat like that. Welcome. Glad to see you. Says, my malignant narc never took care of me, especially my hair. All of my pictures, I look like a little boy. Complete neglect, completely traumatizing, still healing at 67 years. Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like child neglect for sure, or maybe a jealous-hearted family member, or maybe a family member who just couldn't take care of you. I don't know. But that trauma honestly does impact you, doesn't it? Elizabeth is so sweet. She says, Tam, you owe me nothing. I wish I would have the money to be able to work with you on my trauma. Now I have a tot that's starting crowdfunding because this country gives me no possibility. Yeah, I totally understand that. You are still free to talk with me. You did message me on my slowly growing Instagram. I hate Instagram, but I'm trying. And I will get back to you. Okay. I don't want you to feel like I'm ignoring you. I'm just always slammed, if you know what I mean. Okay, guys, I think I got to all of you. I think I did. No, I did. One more person. Keisha Monique says family pushes you away and then says it's your fault for not coming around. Absolutely. That's a great point to end on. I think that is their way of projecting again. It's like, I'm going to project the responsibility onto you. It's you. You're the problem. You're the issue. It's you. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with me, in this live chat. I hope this was helpful to you. I may not post a video tomorrow because I think this live chat needs to kind of stay posted on my channel so that you guys can go back and look at it and look at the comments. YouTube, I'm going to put this out here briefly. YouTube makes the live chat box, this live chat box on my side of the camera, available to you within 12 hours. So no, every time you make a comment, that chat box will be available the next day. I don't know why YouTube does it. I really don't. I don't know why they do it like that. But just know all of your comments will be available tomorrow. Have a wonderful night, guys. So glad to see you. So glad that you can communicate tonight and support each other. Let me know if you want me to talk about traumatic memories. I will do so next live chat. In the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.